That's not what we're here to talk about, huh?
What are we here to talk about?
We're today. Oh, also, by the way, hello, boys. Welcome to Work Hard. My name is Ethan. Today, Jason is out, so I've got Chase with me again.
Glad to be back.
Does it matter that I spit in your garage?
No.
Okay. So Jason is out. Chase is here to fill in the role. We are going to. I'm talking a little loud for the levels. Let me turn myself down here. It's very sensitive, dude. What are we talking about today? Today, I want to talk about one of my favorite topics. And I think, in general, people are really, really bad at this, which is identifying chaos individuals. That's what I call them. I call them chaos people. And getting them out of your life or segmenting them enough that when they blow up, the explosion will not harm you.
For sure.
Make that practical. I'll give you an example. I had a buddy once. He's still my buddy, but I had a buddy a while back who had a mad, crazy girlfriend. Wild person. And the way she was going to explode, the way she was going to ruin my life was that we would go out on like Friday or Saturday night to the bars, and she would walk around and get in shouting matches with other men, which is that's you're walking around with just radium in your pocket.
Yeah, for sure. And these women are, liberated, yet they're counting on some chivalrous Western Christian ethos where they don't just get clocked.
Right, exactly.
Which you can't always count on.
You can't always count on, especially not today. Not with the there are a lot of 13%ers walking around.
Yeah, a lot.
You got to watch that. But also, it's if you. So I mean, to those who need to have it spelled out, if you're with a girl and she's mouthing off, she is writing checks for you to cash, is what's happening.
I'm gonna make this simpler for you. If a girl is doing that, you shouldn't be dating her. You shouldn't even be her friend.
Which is the point. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
like that's the real issue, because you've already gone 8 levels of red flags deep. You
Right.
should have caught it earlier, but
Yeah.
that's the eject button.
Yeah, so she's going to get you in a fight at a bar is the point that I'm making. And if you're with your buddy and he has a girlfriend who's like that, she's going to still get you in a fight, because what are you going to do when your buddy starts getting hit? Mm-hmm. Like, think a lot like you're just going to let him get hit? Not like, I mean,
I'd say just let the girl get hit.
Well, yeah, but your buddy's not going to.
Yeah.
There's no shot your buddy's letting that happen. So that's what I mean is like that's kind of a practical example of what I'm talking about.
Another point to make is be an adult. Like, do something productive. Go fishing with your friends. Like, I mean, I was young, but like nothing productive comes out of just going and drinking in public places with a very tormented, upside down society. Bad stuff's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Now is not the time
to
be going out in public drinking.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that time passed. You say before COVID, or when did that time pass?
I think it would vary on where you were, but I would say everything, it was during COVID time, but I would say it was really the summer of love with George Floyd riots was when like a switch turned, and if you're defending yourself, that doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
Especially based on who you got in a fight with. And also, you just don't want to get in fights, but people across the aisle are so emboldened, they can just go wherever they want and act however they want.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So today is it is a very good time to monitor who you are spending your hours with and who your friends are. I think if you're in a place like we are, being like the hyper premium boys out here are it's relatively chill.
It's a vibe.
Yeah. So if you're in a safe place, you may not necessarily have to abide by this this advice, but you really gotta make sure that you're not with my little sister is. I'll talk about it plainly. I don't care. Mentally ill, and the amount of times that being in public with her escalated from we were in New York one time for Christmas, and her boyfriend didn't propose to her, so she, while under the influence of alcohol, just ran away.
Smart thing to do in New York City.
Into New York. She weighs 110 pounds. You know, just a little white girl off into the city. And that obviously is like, especially if you're a dude under the influence of alcohol, and your sister or your girlfriend or whatever, like some woman that's important to you, vanishes, that is chaos, brother. Yep. Like, that is wild. That is not where you want to be.
Well, there's a reason why in the what's that Korean deal with the white and black? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the yin and the yang.
Yeah, the yin and the yang, whatever they call it. The feminine energy is chaotic.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason why throughout all of history, the feminine energy is chaotic when unbridled.
Right.
And it causes destruction.
Right. Absolutely. What's the quote? I know you're not on Twitter, so you don't see a lot of quotes and a lot of the famous tweets or whatever, but there's like a mimetic tweet that's gone around that's like some girl will say something abhorrent, just totally absurd. I'm glad they're going to pull my baby apart or something crazy. And somebody will retweet a screenshot of this guy who tweeted, women will say something like this and then wonder why throughout all of human history their rights and physical freedoms were extremely restricted.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, girls are a big one on this topic. Girls are a big one, but dudes are also. I had several fraternity brothers who were very. If they got their lives together now, good on them. I hope that's the case. But at the time, they were on a straight up cruise missile trajectory to alcoholism, and were just unsafe to be around.
Yeah,
we had dude. one of my fraternity brothers blacked out hard by himself. Right, frat.
So frat.
Blackout by yourself in the frat house in your room. Blacked out by himself. We're all chilling like a Wednesday night. Like there's a couple casual beers around, maybe, and he flies out onto the deck, second story deck, and tries to jump off head first, and is like, I'm saying the craziest stuff. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. We restrain him, get him down. We're chilling. We don't have to call the police, but he's swinging a little bit on people. Thank gosh there's a dozen other guys there to get him down.
Yeah.
So we get him down. Situation gets, he falls asleep, eventually passes out. The next day he woke up and we were all like, dude, what was that about? You cannot be doing that. And he was like, what are you talking about? And we were like, you tried to kill yourself. And he was like, that wasn't me.
Couldn't be me.
He was just like, for real. He was like, I was blacked out. That's not me. It's like, I wasn't even there. That's not me. And so
Jekyll and Hyde action.
Yeah, dude. So he, those are a couple examples of the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. There are more subtle examples. If you have a friend group that's like mixed sex, there are single girls, single guys, which I mean, that should not be your like primary friend group. Shouldn't be this like mixed group.
No.
But if you do, and you have one girl who's lax in the way she conducts herself, that can just completely rupture your friend group if she starts sleeping with, because any of the dudes, if you're
at any point in time,
yeah, if you're in a secular friend group,
yeah,
who's just rudderless,
it's like the Friends dilemma where they all just end up sleeping with each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that doesn't, like, the way that the show worked out in Friends or whatever, like where it's all like high fives and everybody gets over it, is not how you are going to, that's not how that's going to end up.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have people that like, you're going to have dudes that live together in the same house and one of them starts sleeping with the other girl, and then it's, 18 months later, the other guy starts sleeping with, like, so many times I watched, like, just disintegration of people's lives because of that exact arrangement.
Yeah.
And so it can be more subtle, and that'll like, it's not necessarily that you're going to end up in jail for that situation, but if you're involved, if you come home from work and people are screaming, it's
just a quality of life thing. Like, don't you want to have peace? Don't you want to see progress? And these types of people are a massive hindrance to that.
Right.
And it's going to be, especially for young men, it's going to be a massive hindrance for your ability to grow spiritually, to grow in wisdom, grow your net worth. I mean, all of this stuff it's just a wall that you are sometimes you can't help it, but oftentimes it's your own voluntary decision to participate.
Right. Certainly. Yeah. And this is probably like known by everybody. It's almost not even worth saying, but one of the first things you're supposed to do when you are an addict trying to get sober is get away from all of your friends that you had before that.
Yeah.
So you really do need to focus on isolating those people in your lives. And there's always going to be, some of those people you're not going to be able to. I got a bad haircut, by the way. I don't know if you can tell. It's not good.
Why?
She brought up the part too high.
Yeah.
So now I have this like tuft of hair coming out of my gigantic bowling ball head.
I don't think it's that bad.
It's not that bad, but
if you really need it done well, I'll hook you up with my barber.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. The what was it? I totally forgot train of thought's just gone. Anyways, sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes they're a family member, a close family member, a brother, a sister, a mom, a dad. Sometimes it's a buddy that you've had for a long time who's been totally fine.
Yep.
And got a bad girlfriend, and now he's just off the rails, or just just lost his way somewhere. But you really do have to keep those people away from you, and that right there is what I think the topic of today would be, is keeping those people away from you, because people are really. I have another buddy in particular who is terrible at identifying chaos people, and gives people way too many chances. And like, we've been at social gatherings that are just like chill, people are hanging out totally fine, bunch of couples chilling, and like somebody he invited over punched a hole in his wall while we were all hanging out, like just young professionals.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy. Just constant stuff like that. So it's really important to identify those red flags early, and then have strategies to push those people away. So I'd be interested to hear from you, because you're a very sound person. You're very like even keel. So I would imagine
I keep it in second gear.
I would imagine you have some pretty good strats to identify and detain or isolate chaos individuals. So I'd be interested to hear what you have to say on that.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't think it's that hard to identify them. I think anyone with an IQ above 90, 95 is going to be able to recognize, hey, this person has big mood swings, or if they're have a negative emotion, the reaction far exceeds the circumstance. Like these are all things that basic human beings understand. I think what the issue really is not identifying it. It's being honest about it with yourself.
Yeah.
And not making excuses. This happens. I can only really speak with a lot of experience with guys because I'm a guy. Yeah. All my friends have always been guys. So outside of getting married, I've just never dealt too much with women my age or dating or whatever it is. And so I think it's really about being honest about what you're seeing, and being willing to make hard decisions. You don't have to necessarily end a friendship, but like, hey, I don't go out drinking with this guy because he's uncontrollable. He makes bad decisions, and I don't want to get caught up in a fight where I get a charge because he can't control himself.
Yeah.
I think that's really what's most important. If you're able to be honest with yourself, that's key. Really, I think most of my experience actually has to do with dealing with unstable people that I really, in some ways, am obligated to deal with. I won't get into details because I'm always one for discretion when it comes to family matters. But what I will say is my wife and we had to delay our marriage for about 2 years, trying to reconcile with her parents. And the behavior that was exhibited is something most people wouldn't even believe it if I told them. I mean, just the wild, unhinged kind of stuff. I still don't believe it.
Yeah.
But coming full circle on that was about 5 years of dealing with that. And how we dealt with it was not getting upset ourselves, being patient, but not permitting. We had so many barriers that until forgiveness, reconciliation, and evidence of change, those barriers stayed up.
Right.
And so that's kind of, I think, what we're getting at is you've identified it, you can see it. What are you going to do about it, and how are you going to protect yourself and put yourself in a position where maybe you could bless that person?
Right.
And you have to be smart about it. So I think that's really like the crux of it is you have this person, you can either, depending on the relationship, you can just in that relationship, you can put up barriers, and then understanding the spiritual nature of what's going on and what your obligation is.
Yeah. Give us an example of a barrier you might put in place between you and somebody else.
Okay.
You said I'm not going to go out drinking with this guy, but give us something else.
Okay. Let's take family. I think family's common, and it's the hardest one because you really do have an obligation to your family.
Right.
And if you don't believe you do, then you have more issues, and we're probably talking about you right now.
Yeah.
You're the toxic person. With, family, you have, you want to be able to go to funerals, to go to weddings, to go to Thanksgiving, and you don't want to contribute to this whole theme of, Thanksgiving is this time where you get to have your aunt and your uncle fight over whatever. You want to have a peaceful, thriving family. That's, we're all working towards being productive, loving households that produce great men and women.
Right.
And so let's go through an example. I see a lot of times, or what I've heard a lot from other friends is a mother on the son side that really interferes with the marriage.
Yeah.
So she's dealing with her own womanly issues of the son has left the house. Now he has a wife that in a way is taking the place of that mother as the woman in his life.
Yeah.
And so an example of how to put up barriers is if you're a man and your mother is constantly making comments that are disrespectful or what I see undermine the wife's position in the house.
Yeah.
How she's raising the kids, what they're feeding them, those types of things. What you've got to do is have frank conversations and make it very clear that that person doesn't get to dictate.
Right.
You've got to establish who has the authority, just like with a child. Obviously, you speak in a little different manner, but you have got to establish that this is who's in control. This will not be undermined, and if you seek to undermine it, you are going to be distanced.
Right.
You are going to spend less time around your grandkids or less time around us if you don't have kids. That's kind of a broad example, but I think the key is understanding who's in charge and what are you protecting. And a lot of guys have a soft spot for their mom. And this gets into, you have just got to man up. You've got to say, if I offend my mom, but it's her fault she's offended, I have a duty. you got to stop being emotional and you got to recognize what your duty is in the scenario.
Yeah.
So like if you got a buddy, you have some duty, but your duty is to be honest and to also look out for his best welfare, not for what's going to make him in the moment as emotionally happy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I think the one thing that I have seen a lot, and the thing that I often tell people, so I've had a couple people ask me how to go about like breaking off a friendship or something like that. The thing that I think is important, depending, like this is case by case. So if you have a chaos person in your life who is like malicious and vengeful, they're like a twisted person. You got to clock that, and that person. You need to be able to identify your buddy who has a drinking problem or your buddy who has poor emotional regulation. You know, maybe he's not a bad guy. Mm-hmm. You know, he doesn't want to hurt anybody, but he just can't get himself under control. Mm-hmm. That's one thing, right? And those people you can talk to and just be like, dog, listen, brother, I'm sorry. You know, we cannot be going out every Friday. I got a family, I got stuff to do. You know, I love you. Can't be doing this. That's fine. But if you have a twisted up person, someone who's got like borderline personality disorder, or just a person who's fractured, oftentimes these people feed off of the sort of high energy, dramatic sort of nature that can come with personal interaction. Mm-hmm. And so they want something like you to send them a text,
right,
and be like, hey, I love you, we can't, you know, whatever. The thing I see a lot, like in the outside world, is you see on Reddit or whatever, the like posts of people sending some long text they worked out with their therapist to like their mom or something that's like, you're toxic, you drag me down, I must free myself, I have to be me, whatever. Like that is foolish. I think you're painting a target on your back. You are opening yourself up to that, to making an enemy out of a person who has nothing to lose and probably a lot of time.
Yeah, understand what that person is they are existing in a parasitic relationship.
Yeah.
So what's necessary for a parasitic relationship is something to feed off of. And this becomes a wisdom thing where, let's say you've done your duty. You have said, hey, I love you, or I appreciate you, or think you're a cool person. I'm not going to be a part of this, right? It's, if you engage in this very emotionally driven conversation or you get upset, you're feeding the parasitic relationship, and then the parasite just grows.
Yeah.
And so this is why, while there are wisdom questions based on what's going on in that particular scenario, you need to learn that because it's parasitic, the best thing to do is cut off the source of nourishment for the parasite.
Right, certainly.
Which is, don't get emotional.
Yeah.
You don't need to explain your feelings. I don't know why in our modern age everyone's so therapeutic. Like, tell me how you're feeling or explain yourself. You can be very curt about it.
Yeah, right. Certainly. Like, yeah, and you don't even have to be curt. In I would say in an extreme situation, which I've been in one, where there was just a friend who we were friends in high school, and he just slowly declined into instability. Mm-hmm. I didn't say anything to him. I just slowly stopped. I just started responding to less and less text messages.
Yeah.
Anytime he would ask me to come hang out or do something, I would before I responded to his text, I would go and make a plan, like go plan to hang out with someone else, so that I could text him back and say, "Oh, sorry, bud, I got this going on, whatever." And I just slowly just cut off the drip feed between us and just let it fade.
Yeah, for sure. I've got a buddy that And we've never had any issue with each other. Like, it really wasn't dramatic at all. But basically, if he's not working, all he wants to do is drink in public. That's just like if he has a Saturday, a Sunday, Thursday evening, the only thing he really likes to do is go out and drink. And fortunately, I've had lots of friends, they want to go do stuff. They want to go kayaking or go camping. They want to play pool and have a couple casual drinks and just hang out. And so we never had a conversation. If they went out and like did that, I just didn't go. I said, hey, I just don't do that. I don't find that fun.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. You don't have to have a war plan if it's not a war.
Right.
Just be wise and put yourself in a position where you're not going, well, my buddies are out, so I'm going to go do something I don't want to do. Like, be an individual and do something else.
Yeah, just chill at the house. And if you do, like, if you get FOMO or whatever, and your boys go out like that. I mean, first of all, I'm not saying that if you're a 20-year-old guy, 21-year-old guy, and your boys are going out on a Saturday afternoon, and everybody's chill, like, it's going to be fun. That's not a problem. Go out. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But if you have one or two individuals in that crew who can't go home, who, everybody wants to meet, day drink a little bit, whatever, and they can't turn off the party.
Yeah.
Like, it gets to 9 p.m. and they're on beer 24. Yeah, probably don't go out with that squad.
Yeah.
Just stay home. But yeah, so that's the big point that I feel compelled to make, is that, like, you certainly there are going to be people in your life who you owe things to. And those people you ought to speak candidly with as best you can, without increasing the level of drama in the situation.
Right.
But there are also people who you have to watch. You have to treat them like a clandestine enemy that's, like, in your life to try to sabotage the the caravan that you're trying to get all the supplies to camp or something. Like, treat it like that. Like, you have to be sneaky and I don't mean like super sneaky. You just have to be smart. You have to beguile, like they beguile.
Yeah.
So watch for those people as well. I will say one like little caveat I would say is that there are people who are nefarious and they're chaos people, and maybe they find themselves in a chaotic place. But sometimes those people can be quite valuable. I have another buddy, lots of buddies. Dude, it's so funny. So many of mine.
You're just a popular guy.
Well, I just put no. That's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. But it just so much of you in college, in a fraternity, you get exposed to, like, basically every version of guy, and so I just have so many, like, dudes that are over here. This guy's this way. This guy's this way. This guy's that way. This guy is actually, like, one of my, like, very dearest friends. I would not say he's a good person. He's a liar and a snake, and you really should not turn your back on him. But he's so effective at getting things done because he's such a bulldozing, sneaky little snake in the grass.
He's got that Machiavellian.
Yes, exactly,
persona, yeah.
Exactly. That it's like, if you can manage your relationship with him so that he doesn't, like, get his wires crossed on you, then it's pretty productive to have him in your corner. Because if you need something done, if you're in trouble, there's no one better to call than this guy. Because he'll show up, he'll do whatever has to be done.
The fixer.
To fix this, to resolve the issue. And so if you can, if you are, I will say, if you're 22, you do not have the skills to manage that relationship. Like, you don't. You need to be, like, near 30, probably married. Like, you need to have dealt with a crazy girl a couple times, maybe, to, like, really understand how to do that.
Get warmed up.
Yeah. So if you can manage a relationship with a person like that, sometimes it's advantageous to do so. And so you can do that. But oh dang it, I was about to, dude, I'm in a shambles today. Anyways, yeah, so that's the point. I see you got some notes there on your.
I do. Yeah, well, so this is like, we talked last night, and you said, it's about dealing with difficult people.
Right.
I mean, the most important takeaway, or what I've taken away from years and years of dealing, not with a large volume, but a high level of intensity, very close to home, this is my point I wrote down. You can only control your actions and your responses to these people.
Right.
And this just is being a mature adult. If you're like your uncle that watches Fox News and gets upset because he's told to be upset, you're lower than a child.
Right.
You need to control what you can control and be able to compartmentalize that, not let it bleed into your whatever it is you're doing. Don't let them, what they're wanting to do, what a toxic person is wanting to do is pull you off mission. They're trying to coax you into either a behavior or a lifestyle that is contrary to what your mission is.
Yeah.
And, this podcast is about, work hard. Like, you have a direction, you got to put in effort, and you got to make sacrifices.
Yeah.
They're trying to get you to not work hard.
Right.
They want you to, kind of the old adage, like, they're trying to drag you down with them.
Right.
And so really, like, you've got to make sure you never act in a manner that violates your morality or endangers your mission.
Yeah.
And that's the key. I mean, that's just being a stalwart man.
Right, certainly. And I think in the realm of how to deal with these people, I think it's very important to understand that in, like, yes, the only thing you have control over is how you react to them. Your only weapon in this situation is distance. Mm-hmm. That's really the only, like, when the rubber meets the road. My sister is too volatile for me to feel comfortable around my daughter.
Yeah.
And so, for the sake of my grandparents, who've worked very hard to have to put our family where our family is now, our broader family, like extended family, for their sake, we'll go to family events where my sister's present. I don't speak to her. I don't make eye contact with her. I don't speak to her. One time I was out with Emily's family. We were going to dinner, and she came into where we were having dinner. They just happened to come in.
Yeah.
And she tried, knowing that I had made that clear to her, like, listen, we're not speaking. Mm-hmm. There's too much emotional history. There's nothing I'm going to say that's going to be productive for either of us. Mm-hmm. We're way too, there's too much.
Yeah.
Like, it's not productive. She's still in front of everybody, which is a part of her. Like, this is a good example of, like, this is how these people are. Like, they play these little games. Mm-hmm. And she thought that because I was in front of Emily's family, I was going to play it cool and not engage.
Keep the barrier.
Yeah, not keep the barrier, because she thought it was going to be too uncomfortable. And it was incredibly uncomfortable. But I didn't even look at her. I just said hello to the person she was with, didn't acknowledge her. And it was uncomfortable. It was really hard. Emily's family was uncomfortable. She walked away, and I just made a joke about it and got everybody back on track and whatever, having a good time. But the point I'm making is that we'll go to these, I'll be around her. I'll be physically in her presence, but I don't speak to her. I don't make eye contact with her. If we communicate at all, it's through my parents.
Yeah.
Which is very important to have a mediator. If it's that toxic, hostile of an environment, you need to have a level-headed mediator. And so we communicate to my parents, but we have a pretty clear standing directive, which is if she insists on engaging with Abigail, we'll just leave. And that's really all you can do.
Right.
Like, trying to, like, stand up at Thanksgiving or whatever and be like, told you not to talk to her. Like, you're going to gain control of the situation.
No,
somehow.
and that's what that person wants. That's
Right.
what they're waiting for.
Right, exactly. And so the only thing you can do is very calmly, with love in your heart, say goodbye to your grandparents, shake your uncle's hand, thank you for having us over, say goodbye to everybody, grab your daughter, grab whoever, get everything together, and then just quietly depart. You don't have to make a big deal out of it. You don't have to whatever. And we had to, last Thanksgiving, we almost had to, I came in and my sister was playing with my daughter, and I had to pull my mom aside and be like, what is going on? Because my mom was supposed to be with my daughter. And what's happening right now? Why is Aaron playing with Abigail? I left her with you. Like, and my mom apologized. Like, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention or whatever. So she went back to Aaron and was like, my sister, and was like, listen, they're going to leave. You have to stop her. They're going to leave. And so she stopped, and everything was resolved, and really nobody was the wiser. Like, that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Is that, like, the larger group of people that was there had no idea that anything was going on. And I think that's really important, is if you can resolve these situations without disturbing other people's peace, that is a clear sign that you are managing the relationship very well, I think, because it's just, there are clear indicators for other people if things are getting out of hand.
For sure.
Raised voices, pointing, people putting their hands in the air, whatever. And if none of that is occurring, then it's great. So yeah, you just want to make sure that's kind of how it's going. And I think, to your point, it is really critical that you do this. I think this is being able to be honest with yourself, to separate yourself from these people, identify them, do what you have to do, is as important a skill as, like, being able to save money or because it's
interrelated.
Right.
This will affect your ability to progress financially or professionally. This will affect your ability to have a thriving family that loves you, that you have children and grandchildren that take care of you when you get sick and old. Yeah. This is all interrelated, and it's the way I like to describe it, kind of like the castle doctrine in law, like a man's house is his castle.
Yeah.
You need to view your life like it's its own little kingdom. Yeah. And you need to be looking on the opposite end of this. You're looking for good people to bring in. You
Certainly.
Want friends that can help you, that can give you good advice, good counsel, or just people that are pleasant to be around so you have a greater level of enjoyment. Likewise, you've got to keep the gypsies out, right? You've got to, it's not about the people. And that's where I think people go wrong. Like, some type of toxic, demeaning person is in your life, and everything you're thinking about is about that person.
Right.
It's not about them. It's about you. And that's what flips the switch in your ability to understand what the right course of action is. The reason why we're saying don't react to them, don't feed into it, it may or may not affect how that person feels about it, but they don't matter. That's not what we're ultimately going for. It's about you, your kingdom, your mission, your people.
Yeah.
And failure to recognize that is how people keep a bad relationship around or put themselves in a bad position. And now you've got to charge because somebody's cousin that you should never be around pulls up with an 8-ball at the party. And
right.
Yeah.
Or there's, you've got a crazy girlfriend or something. She's on the phone with you screaming, something's going on. You're distracted in the car. You get in a car accident. Like, this is the kind of stuff we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like it's these situations that just no one can foresee. And the only way to avoid them is to cut them off at the head. I tell Emily, the thing I tell her about, like, safety, the thing I've told her many times is, like, listen, the way you survive a 0% chance survival situation is to not be in one.
Right.
And so just don't engage with these people. And if you are a sort of bleeding heart person, you want to help, and maybe you're right. Maybe this person, in your head, you're thinking, oh, they're down on their luck, whatever, if they just could get a leg up. They could be normal. I was in that situation once because I was a chaos person for a couple of people. And in some instances, if these people get their feet underneath them, they will correct themselves and they will change. But if you're in the trenches with them, you cannot pull them out.
Well, what you're doing, like we said, like the motive for them is to bring that out. They want you in the trench.
Right.
Really, the way you love that person is if they really want to have an interaction with you, they have to get out of the trench.
Right.
So ultimately, it's even better for them. If like your right decision making in these moments or in these relationships is an act of love towards that person.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a perfect parallel, but Paul says when he's preaching, am I your enemy because I tell you the truth?
Yeah.
What he was telling them was not something they wanted to hear. They decried it, fought it tooth and nail, but that was actually loving them, not making room for whatever, sin they wanted to keep around.
Yeah.
And likewise in these relationships, it's a parasitic relationship. If you're sticking around, you're feeding into it, you're contributing to their parasitic lifestyle.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and it is better for them if they do get their feet underneath them and they do correct themselves. It will be good for them for you to be in a position to actually help them in some way that matters if they are displaying a sincere change of heart.
Yeah.
Like, who knows, dude? I mean, people that get down on their luck like that, or people who are like this, they're erratic. They have no ability to manage their own lives, their finances, anything like that. And so they get a speeding ticket and it just levels them. Like that's bankruptcy for some of these people.
Yeah.
And if they're staring down the barrel of going to jail because they can't pay a speeding ticket, and then somehow that scares them into correcting themselves or whatever, maybe there's a real display of change and the speeding ticket's $200.
Yeah.
And you can pay it for them and keep them out of jail. And like that, you need to be incredibly cautious with like giving people money, but it's just an example of like, if you're in it with them, you are indulging in their chaos. You're not going to be in a position where you have $200 extra either.
No.
And so it really is, if you want to actually be helpful to anyone, you ought to conduct yourself along lines of structure that are progressive in nature. And that runs directly counter to getting hammered and, driving drunk, whatever. I mean, just name the behavior. It's just not, these are just not things you can engage in while you're being a productive person. And these people thrive off of those exact behaviors. So
I've got a life lesson. I'm thinking about putting together all the lessons I've learned from my father. And one of them that stuck with me is he said, don't ever lend a personal relation and someone that you have a personal relationship with. Don't lend them money.
Yeah.
You can give them money.
Right.
The key here is you want to have the same feeling of lighting that money on fire as if you're giving it to them, because let's say there's lots of people like this that go around family and they're usually dirtbags anyways.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, like I need this money. I can pay you back in a month. If you feel inclined, you can give it to them, but say, this is a gift.
Yeah.
You don't need to pay me back. And if you don't have that money, then you don't have it to lend either. Right. So this gets into practical applications of if you want to avoid these situations. Let's say you got a buddy. He gets in trouble and let's say he needs like bail money. It's like $500,000. If you're so inclined to do that, you can do it as a gift. And at the worst case scenario is you never see that money.
Right.
And you don't really have to deal with that person. And all you did was put coals on their head.
Yeah.
Because now they're going to have to deal in their own way with the fact that, and it maybe if they're narcissists, then maybe it won't matter. But that you're heaping coals on these people, and that's the way you want to go about it. When you don't give in, when you don't respond, when you are level-headed, you can be cool. It just makes them more irate, which is kind of the fun part, you know. Like if you really want someone to be upset, just don't give them anything, because now they're not getting what they want.
Yeah. We mentioned Doug Wilson, Jason and I do at least, so much on the podcast, but I'll do it one more time. I'm sure it'll happen again. But there's the video that got me into Doug Wilson was him at a college campus. I don't know if it was a debate or whatever, but it just devolved into him being by himself on stage.
Was this the like sodomy discussion?
I think so. Yeah. And there were all these kids in the crowd screaming at him. Some of them were asking questions in a cordial, sort of organized way. Many of them were not. Some of them were half and half, but a lot of them were really, really upset, hurling personal insults at him, personal insults at God, trying to goad him by insulting Jesus, all kinds of stuff. And in other instances, like if you watch like Jordan Peterson or something, you see him in that exact same environment. You can tell, like, although he is conducting himself in a way that like shows massive restraint, you can still tell he's practicing restraint. And they can too. Like they can tell it's actually getting under Jordan Peterson's skin. He's just doing a good job of holding it back and not reacting.
Right.
Doug Wilson, on the other hand, they might as well have not been saying anything. Like just nothing. Like didn't care at all.
But that's because he's there on a mission.
Right.
He is not losing sight of what his mission is, and he's not going to let, especially these, you know, deranged people, take him off his mission.
Right. And he knows that whatever they're saying has nothing to do with him. Nothing to do with him. It is their brokenness that they are throwing up out of their mouths all over people. And you can just not, like, if somebody insults you personally, you don't, it has nothing to do with you.
Right.
It literally has, it's not even you they're referencing. It's just this idea of this person that they have in their head. And so they're irate, they're getting mad at Doug Wilson, they're insulting him, whatever. And he sincerely doesn't care. And never changes his tone, never changes his speech pattern, doesn't change his body language at all. And it makes it worse.
Yes.
They get more angry.
Yeah.
Like the more he's just like, no, I don't think that. They're like, F God, start screaming. And I think they throw stuff at him. Do they throw stuff at him in that video?
I don't remember. I do remember you just see like all the off-duty cops. They all just start converging on the stage. They're like, "All right, let's get closer together on this."
Yeah.
About to lose it.
Yeah. And so that is very true. If you can sincerely in your heart stay like really chill, it is a very. It's so much more. Compelling to those types of people than anything you could say. Just chilling.
Yeah.
So that's also very, that is
and it's a testament to others. That's the other thing here. Other people are watching how you interact with these other people. So, you know, a lot of our opinions of somebody else, yes, it's from direct relationships with them, but we're also watching how they interact with other people.
Yeah.
And so that's something else, like, you know, things that matter. If, like we kind of talked about the kingdom thing, what is your reputation?
Yeah.
If you think that you're going to get down in the trench and you're going to win, you're going to, by whatever means, like you think you're going to win in a toxic way with a toxic person, not only is that hurting you on an individual level, but your family's reputation, your reputation, again, it's pulling you off mission.
Yeah.
It's pulling you out of the gates of your kingdom, and you're just expending energy with nothing to show for it, with losses to show for it.
Right. Certainly. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I can give you a personal example of that. Again, with my sister, you know, I lived in Austin. We'd come back up here to hang out. The whole family would come up. Sometimes I'd bring friends. just have a weekend out here, and my sister would get hammered and would start doing this thing where she just starts holding people hostage with their emotions, and she's just this like terrorist, and everyone would chill and let her do it, and I had this profound sense of like injustice. And I was like, I can't, somebody's got to say something. Somebody has to do something. We got to make this right somehow. And so I would engage with her and say stuff to her. You're being whatever, you're doing this right now, whatever. And it would cause these explosive situations where it's like conflict. It would cause conflict with me and my parents,
right,
between us. And for years, my parents had this idea that it was the problem between my sister and I was two-way.
Right.
That it was not just my sister was out of her mind and I was responding to that poorly. It was that this is some sort of sibling rivalry that can be resolved in a normal sort of, we're going to talk this out type
There's situation. A reasonable explanation,
right,
is what they were thinking.
Yes, yeah. And it was not until I started to conduct myself in the way we've been talking about where I stopped engaging with my sister in ways that were verbose and boisterous, and started just distancing myself from her, not saying anything. And then in conversations with my parents, I'd be like, listen, I just, I have a daughter now, I have a wife. I can't keep coming over and having these huge explosives, especially not around my daughter.
Yeah. Cause now it involves the people you have a duty to oversee.
Right. To protect and to oversee. And so I just can't bring my wife around this. My wife's scared of my sister. She doesn't want to be involved with her. And so I just started conducting myself in this level-headed, removed way. And that opened my parents' eyes to the true nature of the situation, was that the whole problem is my sister. And that speaks directly to what you're talking about with this, like, your reputation. What does it show other people? Like, other people will be on your side. If you're the one who's just like, listen, man, I don't know. They're in a tough way.
I'm praying for them.
Yeah, I'm praying for them. I hope they, hope the best. I can't personally engage in this kind of behavior.
Right.
I'm just got to step away. And be honest. You could be honest with the people. Be like, listen, if I start talking to them, I'm going to get angry and I'm going to act irate. So I'm sorry, I just can't interact with them. I don't want to be in that place.
Yep.
I don't like feeling that way. They seem to love feeling that way. You can say get little digs in there like that. But I'm just not going to do it. And that will help a lot. Like, if you're, if you have, I keep thinking about this in the context of younger guys. If you're younger, you're like high school to late middle college, something like that. Your friend group is like your world. And so I definitely understand the stress that can come from you having static with a member of your friend group who is this type of person. And everybody, there's a guy in my college friend group who hates me. Don't know why, never talked to him about it, don't really care. Everyone else is kind of, they don't see it because he's not mean to them. And so they see him as a chaos person, but as he's like a little puppy, that they're all just kind of sad about. And so I could go to war with this kid and cause friction, but I would look like the bad guy and we would rupture our friend group and I would get kicked out.
And for what?
Right.
What like that's what so many people don't understand is, like, what are you looking to gain by participating in this?
Right.
And I think a lot of people, they're so emotional, it's just their own pride. It blocks them from thinking clearly, thinking with wisdom. What would I have to gain by, even if you're right, like you've got that one zinger that can just level that person or publicly humiliate them, what is that actually helping? Does that benefit you in any way?
Right.
And I think ultimately, like, not to wrap up the conversation, but to zoom out and to put this in frame as to why have we been talking about this for this long? Like, why is it worthy talking about? Why is it worthy to go through examples to encourage people that may be in a similar position? The reason why is that this is a major hindrance to men being productive.
Yeah.
And if that's what we want beautiful marriages that produce beautiful, loving children, that make good citizens, that make good neighbors, that make thriving economies, and we get greater levels of comfort, enjoyment, peace, security. If that's what you want, and that's what this whole podcast is really working towards,
right?
This is one of those major things you got to get right if you want to get to that point, or you want to keep that. If you already have that, you've constantly got to have defenses. Just because you lock down your kingdom, the second you start pulling guard towers down and you start being a little free with it, that's the second that the Moors come in.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's exactly correct. The one of the great differences between Chase and I is that I like to say that I'm like inherently, obviously, very conservative Christian, bordering on like racist, fascist person. But in my, like, there's this part of me that's like in my core, I'm sort of like a gay hippie. And so
the duality of man.
Yeah. The duality of man. Yeah. Yeah. And so there's this, like, in my heart, I have this desire to immediately have my heart touching other people's hearts. Mm-hmm. I have a very hard time when I feel like there's spiritual separation between me and another person, mm-hmm. especially if I'm next to, like, I'm in the room with them. It doesn't, what I'm trying to say is that if you're this like bleeding heart type, you're a sort of cerebral, flowery guy.
You're a lover.
Yeah, you're a lover. Yep. It doesn't, that's not an excuse.
No.
It is not an excuse.
If anything, it means you need to spend even more time thinking about this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to be even stricter with yourself and with other people. Same buddy that I talked about earlier who had somebody punch a hole in his wall. He was a leadership at a Christian ministry organization, mid-ministry, like middle of the day. Mm-hmm. He had to leave in the middle of ministering to other people to address the same guy I just talked about who's mean to me, him pretending that he's going to kill himself.
Yeah.
And it's like this is exactly what we're talking about. Like that moment, who knows what could have been done or said to further God's kingdom if my buddy had not had to leave his job to go deal with that situation. Like, who knows what level of productivity could have been captured in those hours. Mm-hmm. Like, his mission was altered. He was taken off mission. He was taken off course by this person who wasn't even, he should have left him there. Like, he wasn't going to do anything.
Well, that guy knew what he needed to say to get him in the trench.
Right.
He knew what the soft point was, and that's the nature of humans like this. They know what the weakness is, what they want to push. They know what you hold dear.
Yeah.
And they know that is most likely to bring you in.
Yeah.
And the more you give into that, then the more they're going to keep going.
Yeah.
And it's again, I think the listener needs to understand, we're not saying these situations are easy.
Right.
We're speaking about them in simplistic terms, and they are in a way simple, but we're all human beings and things can get muddy. So we're not saying that they're not difficult.
Yeah.
We're just saying it's so necessary to deal with that difficult situation in the right way.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be interconnectivity in relationships. I think family's the biggest one, where you are going to feel the heat.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to suck. But here's what I tell my wife all the time and what I tell other people. Life is hard.
Yeah.
You just pick your hard. Do you want to work out when you're tired and not, put your body into suffering, or do you want to have disease when you're 50?
Yeah.
Both of those are hard. It's just, which one would you rather have? And I think this is poignant for this conversation. What we're describing is not some easy, it's just, kind of the therapeutics are like, you just need to cut these people out.
Yeah.
It's not that straightforward, even though oftentimes that's what's necessary. This is going to be difficult, but it's so important that you just got to suck it up and do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So be a man and do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just do it. I think that's a great place we're at an hour.
Yeah. I do want to close out with something. I think it's a good way to close out is we've been very pragmatic. We've outlined some examples, some wisdom we've picked up in dealing with situations like this over the years. But pulling way out into the metaphysical, the spiritual world of this is what you need to understand is these people are image bearers of God, and they are sinners just like you, and they need forgiveness. And so what does Scripture say for us to do? We need to pray for them. And this is a good way, practically, if you want to learn how to control your own emotions and negative feelings towards another human being, just pray for them.
Yeah.
I promise you, if you do that, one, I believe that there's an effectual component of someone being prayed for. I believe that can change things. But secondly, it's incredibly beneficial to you.
Yeah.
You will start to see your heart change. You will have less of an inclination to react poorly, to continue to engage in a way that is hurting yourself and everyone else. If you take that practical step, there's some great wisdom in the Bible. Particularly, I think of a soft tongue turns away wrath. I'm very much paraphrasing that, but understand that you're going to want to respond. You will want to beat that person.
Yeah.
But that's your own misunderstanding. That's not how you win. That will only hurt you.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great note to end it on. All right, everybody. That's it for us. Thank you for listening. We love you. We are praying for you. Please go to church. Please have a family. Worship the Lord. These are the things that matter the most. What else? Anything else? We good to go?
Sola Gloria.
Yes. What does that mean?
To the glory of God alone.
To the glory of God alone. All right, boys. We'll see you around. Bye.